According to Tesbros, you can save yourself over $600 on a Chrome Delete by using their kit. Is it worth the savings? I'm Frugal Tesla Guy, and you're about to find out. It wasn't too long ago that I posted a video discussing the Model 3 refresh, which includes a Chrome Delete like that of the Model Y. Now, a Chrome Delete is nothing new on the Tesla Model 3, not to mention the Model S and X. Now, there are a few ways of doing this. Number one, and perhaps the least appealing, is to buy the raw materials yourself and make your own cuts. However, if you're not a professional and have never really done this before, this is probably not the best option. Now, on that note, number two, hire a professional to do it for around $1,000, give or take. Cost aside, this is the most appealing in my opinion because you'll most likely be happy with the results without any noticeable flaws, as most shops take pride in their work. But it's hard for many, including myself, to validate that kind of cost for something like this. Now, this leads us to the third option, a pre-cut Chrome Delete kit. Now, based on my research, there are about three main competitors in this arena: Tesbros, Nikola Pro, and Kenrico. Now, since I've had positive results with my center console wrap where I made my own cuts, I felt pretty confident that I could do this. Now, I decided to go with Tesbros based on countless positive reviews in the Tesla community alone. Now, I'm sure Nikola Pro and Kenrico have good products as well, but I only have one car and need one kit. Now, I'd like to mention quickly that this is not a tutorial video, but rather a review of the product and my overall experience installing it. With that said, let's see what comes in the Tesbros kit. Now, they give you almost everything you need to do a complete Chrome Delete, including the Tesla logos and door handles. Now, since this will be the first time most people will be doing this, they provide you with two of each of the pre-cuts to help with the learning curve during installation. They also include two different types of squeegees that will also be needed during the installation. Now, what you need to provide on your own is a cleaning solution to wipe down the chrome clean before installation, and a heat gun or a hairdryer works just as well. Before you get started, you'll need to make sure you set aside an entire day. Otherwise, you'll need to spread the project over 2 or even 3 days. Now, this should take you upwards of 8 hours, give or take, depending on your skill level. Now, I also recommend you watch all of the install videos from beginning to end before you get started to help give you an idea of what to expect. Now, be sure to have your computer, phone, or tablet queued up with the videos to help guide you through the installation process. Now, since I was doing this for the first time, I decided to start with what looked like the easiest piece to install, and that was the corner trim. Now, what I began to quickly discover is that the material was actually pretty easy to work with. I was also amazed with how well it matched up with the trim. I then decided to start working on the bottom trim of the front and rear doors, and once again was thoroughly impressed with how well everything matched up. However, it was this next piece that gave me a lesson in making sure you're working in a clean and dust-free environment, because I had a pretty big and noticeable piece of dirt or some kind of dust stuck between the chrome and the material. Now, I decided to use my backup piece, and I'm glad I did because it turned out looking a lot better. Now it was onto the front door and then the top trim, and so far, so good. I did have to make a very simple cut on the top trim piece near the mirror due to excess material, but really not a big deal at all. It was now time for the side view mirror, and quite honestly, the scariest and most intimidating part of the job. Now, since they wanted to avoid having anyone from having to detach the mirror, they were able to figure out a way to make several different cuts to apply in different steps. And all you have to do is fold and unfold the mirror a few times. Now, unfortunately, it's a total of 10 pieces each with their own level of difficulty. And as a result, once again, following the instructional video step by step is very important. Now you need to know the order the pieces go on and which one overlaps the other. It's definitely a process and the part of the job that takes the most amount of time. But if you take your time and have patience, you'll get through it. I was surprised I didn't have to use any of the backup pieces, but it was nice knowing they were there if needed. The side repeater was a different story, and quite honestly, more difficult than I thought. Now with the first piece, I followed the instructions to a T as usual, but found myself short on the top edge. Now I kept trying to stretch it, but didn't have any luck. It was now time to use the backup piece, and it was the exact same issue. But since I was prepared and realized that it might happen, I decided to give it a good stretch to make it fit to a point I had to make a cut to be able to tuck it underneath the repeater. Now it worked out, but since I did have to stretch it so thin, there is a little discoloring. But under the circumstances, I was actually quite pleased with the end result. Next were the door handles. Now upon watching the install video, I noticed the wrap only covered the front of the handle. But I did see they do sell a kit for all 4 handles that wraps around the entire handle. Now this seemed like a better solution to me, so I ordered some of these to replace the ones that come in the full Chrome Delete kit. Now I first installed the original piece that came with the kit on the back door handle. And the full wrap on the front door handle. even though you can clearly see chrome once you push the door handle in, it actually still looks better than the full wrap in my opinion. There are too many seams, and it may have something to do with my skill level, but I just couldn't get the rounded corners to smooth out the way I wanted. In fact, the handle didn't even fully retract. Now this may have to do with the fact that I have self-presenting door handles, but any way you look at it, I just wasn't happy with the result. So I decided to continue on with the original pieces that came with the kit, and it actually had a much better look in my opinion. Now, although I was hesitant, I did decide to install the Chrome Delete on the Tesla logo on the front, just to see what the process was like, and actually found it to be quite easy. All you do is peel off the back to expose the adhesive, line it up with the logo, press down, and slowly lift the cover off. However, I personally like the logos better without the delete, so I ended up taking it off in the end. Now, since I was recording the process, it probably did take me a little bit longer than usual, but it ended up taking me about 6 hours to finish the first half of the car. However, on the second day, it took me closer to 3 hours to finish the job entirely. Now, I believe that was due to less focus on recording and an overall feeling of more confident in my skills after doing the first half of the job. It did seem a little easier the second day, but I still had to reference the videos. So, how was my overall experience? Well, let's start with the good. First and foremost, I have to hand it to Tesbros for their precise cuts, especially with the side view mirrors. So many things could have gone wrong in the 10 steps to get it wrapped on the mirrors, but everything fit perfectly. Everything was well labeled, so you would know which piece goes where, and even whether it's for the driver's side or passenger side. I also like that they give you 2 of everything. Now, even though I was able to get most of it done with the first piece, it was nice having that backup for the pieces that didn't go so well. Now, as we all know, not everything is perfect, including this kit. Now, as I mentioned, I was thoroughly impressed with how precisely everything was cut. But as we saw earlier in the video, the driver's side repeater needed a lot of stretching in order to cover up all of the chrome. And I had to make some impromptu cuts in the process. However, what I found interesting is that it actually fit perfectly on the passenger side, and there was no stretching at all. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Now, as it is with pretty much any do-it-yourself kit, it's just not going to be as clean as you would get from a professional. Now, there are noticeable flaws within the overall job, especially on many of the rounded corners. And at first, I was thinking the corners of the doors would be uncovered when you open the door, but they can actually be seen even when the doors are closed. Now, since most of us can't work in a completely dust-free environment, there are going to be a few dust particles that get between the wrap and the chrome. It's really difficult to avoid all of the dust particles, unfortunately. I do like the fact that you don't have to take the side view mirrors apart, but that comes at a cost, because the 10 different pieces that delete the chrome on the mirrors overlap each other, and there are several seams as a result. Now, that all being said, I don't fault Tesbros at all for any of these shortcomings. That's just the reality of it. But in the end, is it worth the $600+ savings you get by purchasing this kit? Well, in my opinion, absolutely yes. Most people aren't going to notice most of the things I just mentioned because they'll be too distracted with just how great it looks. Because that's what it comes down to. After all my hard work, I'm extremely happy with the end product, despite some of the imperfections. Now, many of you might be saying, why would you cover the chrome? It looks great as it is. And I get it. This is all about preference, and I too felt the same way about the chrome. But once I saw a chrome delete in person, I was thoroughly impressed. So what are your thoughts? Are you a bigger fan of chrome or the chrome delete? Is this a project you think you might be able to take on? I'd love to read your comments in the comments section below. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and stay positively charged.